And this is Baruch here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. Little outer space introduction here for Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg. So he doesn't want to be called rabbi. He's not a rabbi. He's an astrologer. That's what he says. But he can put out a lot of Torah here, and that's what we're learning. The basic idea here in the section that we're learning, because there were several sections to this book, and some of them, as you may have just listened to, some of but to Rabbi Mimran, where we really start getting into physics. And this book also, in different sections, gets into higher math and physics. It explains some tremendous secrets in the Torah. But right now, we're occupied with trying to prove the fact that astrology is a part of Judaism, and the differences between the astrology of the Jews and the astrology of the Gentiles. So let's come over here and let's see what's playing. We're on chapter 8, and this is Jewish astrology, a cosmic science, and it says like this: if two nativities. Now, a nativity is apparently an old world. It's a horoscope drawn on date, time, and place of birth, known today as a chart, or as a birth chart. So if two nativities are two birth charts that are similar in their mazel, that is to say, mazel means planet, so it means a similar charts. One is of a non-Jew who does not keep the 7 Noahide laws, and the second is of a Jew who fulfills the commandments. And these charts are brought to a wise man of one of the nations. He will find that the Jew will follow the Torah who follows the Torah, was saved from all the difficult degrees in his birth chart. And the unrighteous non-Jew was tripped up by all of the difficult degrees depicted in his chart. Again, this does not mean that the Jews are better than the non-Jews. We are talking about Jews who follow the Torah. And so they are saved versus the people who don't follow the straight path and go after their instincts. And the best of peoples get lost without a guidebook. So the term unrighteous non-Jew also includes the Jews who do not follow the path of the Torah. So let's go on. This will be a great wonder for the wise men of the nations, and they will be startled. They'll be startled when they see the greatness of Israel. I live in Israel, and it is a miracle that we exist at all. Once Jews used to live in ghettos in Europe, which were situated in major cities, and there was a pogrom or massacre against them here and there, where they got kicked out or lost their money, etc. And this continues even today. As the world integrated, there is this little country called Israel, and some want us to give away the West Bank and thus become smaller, but we still survive here. So there are about 5 million Jews here, that's at the time of his writing, and we are surrounded by 300 million Arabs who want to get rid of all of us. And we have another million within Israel itself who don't exactly like us. And we also have all the other nations of the world who don't exactly like us either. But we somehow keep going. And this is a kind of a miracle, which brings you to another point. We see that sometimes people don't have eyes to see. Everyone talks about Nostradamus, for instance, and how he could predict things. But nobody talks about the ancient prophets, and when you look at the books of the prophets, you realize that their prophecies came true, much more than Nostradamus' prediction. And Moses said in the Torah that the Jews were going to be exiled and that they would come back to the land of Israel. And this was a unique prophecy which came true, and Moses lived over 3,000 years ago, as we know. And still the Bible doesn't seem to be taken too seriously by some. And you see all the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, etc., who told Israel that they would mess up and be exiled, and then come back to the land of Israel. Predictions like these, the greatest astrologer cannot predict. It's easier to predict what will be in the near future, and almost impossible for non-prophets to predict what will be in the distant future. The more you move astrologers from the present, the harder it is for them to predict. My teacher told me that once someone predicted to him when the Second World War was going to start, and he did this just 2 days before that war was started. So even though he got it right, this was not a unique prediction. But if you are honest with yourself, especially astrologers who know how hard it is to predict, you realize that the prophecies in the Bible are something absolutely extraordinary. As there is the saying, if astrologers knew everything, there would be no need for prophets. But you see that astrologers can't predict what will happen in the distant future. But the prophecies of the prophets regarding this all come true. Astrologers see things in a partial way, while prophets could see the whole thing, because they are working with a system beyond the planets. This is a thought people should think about. And maybe then there will be more people studying astrology and maybe later prophecy. Unfortunately, in America, where I grew up, the intellectuals read everything except the Bible and the prophets. It wasn't in the curriculum. So let's move on. Let me turn the page here. So he says, there is another difference between Israel and the nations. If there is a decree that is suitable to come on Israel and the nations, and God wants to nullify it from the nations, we said before he removes the power of the planet and nullifies it. And when he removes the power of the planet and nullifies the grief of the Jew and non-Jew alike, because there doesn't remain to the planet damage or help. This is the standard way in which he removes the decree for the non-Jew. And so he also removes it for the Jew at the same time, if it is the same decree that was decreed on a non-Jew and a Jew. And if God wants to nullify decrees from Israel, he doesn't weaken the power of the planet, because the planets have no rulership over Israel, but rather he does this from above the planets. So because the energies of the planets are not weakened or interfered with, they still work at full force, and therefore the decrees remain established over the non-Jew. And on this the Torah passage says, for what great nation is there that God so close to them? The Lord our God, however, we call to him. Now let me read this again because I got a little mixed up. So he said, and on this the Torah passage says, for what is a quote, for what great nation is there that God is so close to them? The Lord our God, whenever we call to him. He says, your wisdom will be before the eyes of the nations, who will see that the decrees of the planets are nullified from you in your calling out to God, and it is not nullified from them. With this you will see the wisdom of Israel, because all of the astrologers saw that Hezekiah, the king of Judah, was destined to rule no more than 14 years, and yet because of his righteousness and prayers, he ruled for double those years. The decrees of the stars were overridden, and the astrologers are cognizant of this honor. This is Baruch Fleischman. This is the Tigran Elevator Kollel. And we have been listening to the words of Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg, Jewish astrologer.